Prince Leo lived a life of great comfort and ease. He was the beloved son of a kind king and queen, and his days were filled with royal duties, grand feasts, and joyful celebrations. The people of his kingdom admired him for his handsome looks and cheerful spirit. He had everything a young prince could ever want: fine clothes, loyal friends, and a future that promised only happiness and prosperity. Prince Leo never knew a day of hardship. He believed his life would always be this perfect, this simple, and this bright. He spent his time riding his noble horse through the castle gardens and learning the ways of the court, completely unaware of the darkness that was about to fall upon his perfect world. One fateful evening during a grand royal ball, a wicked witch named Morwen appeared in the great hall. She had not been invited, and her heart was filled with jealousy and spite. She pointed a long, bony finger at Prince Leo, her eyes glowing with a malevolent green light. She cackled loudly, and the music stopped as a hush fell over the terrified guests. The witch spoke a terrible curse. She declared that the prince would lose his royal form and be cast out from his home. He would be forgotten by all who knew him, and his handsome face would be hidden from the world until he could prove his worth through great sacrifice and true courage. The curse was a powerful and dark magic. In an instant, the prince's fine clothes turned to rags. His skin became rough, and a strange, beastly shadow seemed to cover his features, making him unrecognizable to his own parents. The guards, seeing only a monstrous stranger, chased him from the castle grounds. The witch's magic was cruel and complete. No one remembered the prince they had just been celebrating. He was now an outcast, alone and terrified. He ran from the castle, his heart pounding with fear and confusion. The life he had known was gone, vanished like a dream upon waking. He had lost his home, his family, and his very identity in a single, cursed moment. He was no longer a prince. He was a forgotten soul with nowhere to go. Prince Leo stumbled into the deep, dark woods that bordered his former kingdom. The trees seemed to whisper his name in sorrow, their branches reaching for him like skeletal arms. He was hungry, cold, and utterly alone for the first time in his life. The world that had once been so kind and gentle now felt harsh and unforgiving. He had never had to find his own food or build his own shelter. The forest was a frightening place, full of strange sounds and unseen dangers. The prince wept, his tears watering the forest floor. He realized that his old life of ease had not prepared him for this cruel reality. He had to learn to survive, or he would perish in the wilderness, forgotten forever. The first few weeks in the Whispering Woods were the hardest of Prince Leo's life. He struggled to find berries that were safe to eat and clean water to drink. He learned quickly that some plants were poisonous and that clean streams were a precious gift. The nights were long and cold, and he shivered in the simple shelter he built from fallen branches and leaves. He missed his warm bed and the delicious meals from the castle kitchen. Every sound in the dark made him jump, and he often thought of giving up. But a small spark of hope still flickered within his heart. He refused to let the witch's curse defeat him completely. This struggle was teaching him a lesson he never learned in the palace, the lesson of survival. As the seasons changed, Prince Leo grew stronger and more capable. He watched the animals of the forest and learned from them. He learned to track deer, to fish in the river with a spear he carved himself, and to set simple traps for rabbits. His hands, once soft and smooth, became calloused and strong. He learned the songs of the different birds and could tell the time of day by the position of the sun. The forest was no longer just a place of fear. It was his home and his teacher. He was no longer the pampered prince. He was a skilled woodsman, his senses sharp and his body hardened by labor. He found a new kind of freedom in his simple life. The prince's heart also began to change. Living alone in the quiet of the woods, he had much time to think. He remembered his old life and saw how little he had understood about the world outside the castle walls. He had taken his comfort for granted and had never truly known what it meant to be hungry or afraid. He developed a deep compassion for all living creatures. He would often help injured animals, mending a bird's broken wing or freeing a fox from a hunter's forgotten trap. This kindness brought him a sense of peace that his royal life had never provided. He was becoming not just stronger, but also wiser and more compassionate. One day, While practicing with a bow he had made from a yew branch, he felt a profound shift within himself. He looked at his reflection in a clear pool of water. The beastly shadow of the curse was still there, but his eyes were different. They were clear, confident, and full of a quiet strength. He realized that the witch had taken his title and his appearance, but she could not take his spirit. In fact, the hardship had forged him into a better man. He was no longer just Prince Leo, the boy who had everything. He was Leo, the survivor, the protector of the woods, a man who had earned his strength and his wisdom through his own efforts and his own will. Years passed, and Leo's life in the forest became a peaceful routine. He was content with his quiet existence, finding joy in the simple rhythms of nature. However, whispers began to travel on the wind, carried by merchants and travelers who sometimes passed near the edge of the woods. They spoke of a neighboring kingdom, the kingdom of Solana, which had fallen under a dark shadow. An evil sorcerer named Shump had seized power. He ruled with an iron fist, using his dark magic to terrorize the people. The land was withering under his cruel command, and the once happy kingdom was now a place of fear and despair. The stories troubled Leo deeply. The travelers' tales grew more desperate with each passing month. They spoke of Shump's insatiable greed for power and his goal to spread his darkness across all the lands. They said he was searching for ancient artifacts to make his magic unstoppable. Leo listened to these stories with a heavy heart. He thought of the innocent people living in fear, just as he had once been afraid and alone. His own suffering had taught him empathy, and he could not stand by while others endured such cruelty. The spark of the prince that still lived within him was reignited. He knew he could not hide in the safety of his forest forever while a great evil threatened the world. He made a decision. He would leave the sanctuary of the Whispering Woods and journey to the kingdom of Solana. He would face this sorcerer Shump and try to free the people from his tyrannical rule. It was a dangerous quest, and he might not survive. He was just one man against a powerful sorcerer with an army of enchanted creatures. But his time in the wilderness had taught him courage. He was no longer the frightened boy who had run from the castle. He was a warrior, tested by hardship and strengthened by his trials. He knew that true royalty was not about wearing a crown, but about protecting the innocent and fighting for what is right. Leo gathered his few possessions, his sturdy bow, a quiver full of arrows he had fletched himself, his sharp hunting knife, and a small pouch of dried berries. He said a silent farewell to the forest that had been his home and his teacher for so long. He promised the whispering trees and the gentle animals that he would return if he could. With the rising sun at his back, he set out on the long road to the kingdom of Solana. His heart was a mix of fear and determination. He was walking toward danger, but he was also walking toward his destiny. The quest to defeat Shump was not just for the people of Solana, it was also the final test of his own character. The journey to Shump's fortress was filled with peril. The lands ruled by the sorcerer were blighted and twisted. Leo had to cross treacherous mountains guarded by snarling shadow beasts and navigate enchanted swamps that tried to pull him under. He used his forest skills to move silently, avoiding Shump's patrols and overcoming the magical obstacles in his path. His courage and resourcefulness were tested at every turn, but he never wavered. He fought bravely when he had to, his arrows flying true and his knife flashing in the dim light. Each victory, no matter how small, strengthened his resolve. He was a force of nature, a spirit of the wild pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Finally, he reached the sorcerer's dark castle. He snuck inside, moving through the cold stone corridors like a ghost. At the heart of the fortress, he found Shump in his throne room, gloating over a magical orb that pulsed with dark energy. The sorcerer was powerful, and a great battle began. Shump hurled fireballs and bolts of lightning, but Leo was quick and agile. He used his wits, dodging the attacks and using the environment to his advantage. The final confrontation was a test of will as much as strength. Leo, remembering all he had learned about courage and sacrifice, fired a single perfect arrow that shattered the sorcerer's orb, the source of his power. The dark magic exploded, and Shump vanished into nothingness. As the sorcerer was defeated, light streamed back into the castle and the kingdom. The curse on the land was broken. The people, freed from their fear, rejoiced. In the throne room, a beautiful young woman was released from a magical prison. She was Princess Sophia, the rightful ruler of Solana, whom Shump had held captive. She looked at the brave woodsman who had saved her people, and she saw not his ragged clothes or shadowed face, but the kindness and courage in his eyes. She thanked him with all her heart, and in that moment of pure gratitude and admiration, a wonderful thing happened. The witch's curse on Leo finally broke. The beastly shadow lifted, and he stood before her as the handsome prince he once was. Prince Leo and Princess Sophia fell in love. He had saved her kingdom, and she had seen the true hero within him. They decided to marry and rule Solana together. When news reached Leo's old kingdom, his parents rejoiced, their memories restored. They were overjoyed to see the wise and compassionate man their son had become. Leo had lost a crown and a life of ease, but he had gained something far more valuable: wisdom, strength, and a heart full of kindness. He and Queen Sophia ruled their kingdom with fairness and empathy, always remembering the lessons learned from hardship. They built a world where strength was measured by kindness, and true royalty came from the goodness of one's soul, ensuring a long and happy reign for all.